And we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lorelines. Fowlin Hawk here. It's been a few weeks, I think. Last week we took a hiatus to discuss the organization itself, and we are back. So today we've got Ayumi, Neela, Cobran, Meowth, and myself, and we're discussing Gridiania. Comms are open. Hey, everybody. How have you been?
Hey, what's going on?
What is up?
Been
exhausted.
Right, that's a mood. Keeping busy as always.
a bit bristling by some other reasons, but otherwise, fine enough.
That's good. Did anybody do
have to
anything
say-
fun this week? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, that ties into the. Did anyone do anything fun this week?
Yay.
I have to say, Wing 2 of Pandemonium's out, and I'm still just obsessed with Hesperos. Still stuck in the past. It's just, I don't know.
It's not his
I've
fault
been
he's sexy.
interacting with a bunch. I've been interacting with a bunch more fans this week and making friends and having a really good time and hanging out. So I've been having a good week, even though it's been a bad week. Events have been awful, but I've made it good.
I went to an art party on Friday night, and I stayed up way too late, but I had fun, because I was one of the bards that played there.
Nice.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, yeah.
What server
I hope
was
that
that?
went
And I got a lot of art
Leviathan.
done of my character. You can see it on Twitter.
Oh yeah, I saw. It looked really. There's some really good artists out there. I was bummed I couldn't make it. I have D&D beginning right when the party began, and then raid going until it ended.
But
I
Neela,
popped
you
in
were
afterwards
going
and
to
hung out at the
you were
end.
going to show up. Core Healer and we were there.
Nice. Yeah, were any of the viewers there? It was a pretty big art party.
I don't know. There was a
It's
lot of
big enough
people
you might
there.
not see
I
'em.
mean, yeah, there was it was LunarCon size. Like there was a
Was that
lot
big?
of people there.
Wow.
Yeah,
Arden was there
Really
too.
cool.
parties have really picked up in popularity.
But I plan to go on more of these events just because people really like the music that I perform in game. So you'll probably see me
you're
at more of these
fantastic.
events or playing at random venues throughout the week.
Nice. Yeah, you're a fantastic performer, and I'm glad you're able to get in there. I will say this particular art party, I always see them and then I get really shy and I'm like, well, I don't know how to act. I don't know
Same.
what to do. And the host made a little graphic breaking it down. This is the etiquette. And I was just looking at this. It's like, I can do this. I can do this. So, it was really cool.
Yeah, I've
Just
never got
find the
one.
place to wallflower. That's it.
Yeah, and then people draw you, and it's or it takes
That's literally it. That's what I did at LunarCon. I just found a place where I just leaned up against the wall and someone messaged me, "Hey, can I draw you?" I'm like, "Sure."
That sounds
That's
amazing.
really cool. I'd just be shyly complimenting everyone's glams because everyone always looks so good at these.
And that's what they do too. If they don't want to draw you, they'll compliment you.
If they don't want to draw you, they'll compliment you.
I mean, I could draw you if you like stick figures.
But they'll also let out a message in chat. They'll also shout anyone wants their picture drawn or whatever, and then you just message the person who shouted.
That's so cool.
reply because I'm
To be
always
honest-
late.
To be honest, speaking from my experience, I would prefer people not complimenting my work and actually complimenting me for my work. But that's just that's just me.
Yeah, and for
It's a-
budding artists, an
it's
art
a-
party is a great place to go to get a lot of subjects to draw, to just get some practice. You don't have to make full finished pieces. A little sketch, and someone's going to be over the moon.
You are the
I would
only
probably be
artist,
excited if someone drew a stick figure of my character, legitimately.
the only artist that I know of who doesn't want praise.
What?
You prefer not to have praise
Mm,
because you run every time someone gives you praise.
You're not wrong.
No, you're right.
I mean, but that's why I say that I prefer commissions to compliments because I don't
That's
eat
what
from
I'm saying.
compliments.
Why?
But compliments are nice. It's just my brain's not prepared, made biologically.
All you have to
accept
say is thank
compliments.
you.
She can't say thank you when she's running away.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we have a fishing line attached to her.
Yank it back.
I wish it was an exaggeration, but no.
It's funny. Well, I guess we should proceed on along. What did we have in mind today?
Oh, we're going to talk about Gridiania.
Hugging
Yeah,
trees.
everyone's gonna go off, and so is Neela.
Yeah.
Beautiful on the surface, with interesting things lurking beneath.
No, fucking terrifying.
Yes, we'll get there.
See, I have issues with time travel. Coberon has issues with Gridiania.
I don't have the same kinds of issues with Gridiania. So a lot of the city-states didn't really... Well, we'll get into it.
Gridiania is like a cute little Muppet puppet being held by an eldritch terror, and most people only see the Muppet puppet.
That sounds about
That's
right.
People
Well,
talk about Gridiania and oh, so beautiful, oh, so this, and I'm like,
it's so serene and
Yeah.
filled
Those
with
are
murder.
people who didn't play
there's a reason
1.0.
for that.
I wish, and maybe I'll think about this for the future, but I wish I had just like a player up I could just throw into OBS, because the music in 1.0 Gridiania was so haunting and like, I mean, true like Dark Forest, don't fuck around here vibes. And
Oh man,
it had 3 tiers of territory, because the maps in the original version of the game were not the best, to be honest, but they had layers. So there was a main floor and a bottom floor where there was high-level monsters you could see at level 1. You
Just
could
like
see level
ogres.
50s there. And then a
Cool.
top floor as well. And it was kind of the same in the Limson areas and Thanalan and in Gridiania, but like there was always a level 50 monster like 50 feet from you. And so that plus the utter shade, I mean, there was no sunlight going through the boughs in that stage of the game. And the corridors were kind of like an expansive square, like in the Moggle fight. And then in between were very thin sort of alleyways traversing through the map. And so, like, you really got a sense for, like, don't mess with this forest. And a lot of that's different with A Realm Reborn, right? The Calamity shot rocks and debris and shards of Dalamud through the forest and, like, utterly, like, truly decimating the treetops. And it's a different vibe now, but all of that underlying stuff is still there, I assume.
as I recall, the areas in 1.0 were not like separated. You could just keep walking, right? That was a thing.
Correct.
Yeah.
I feel like that would have been cool because it would really lend into this mazy thing. But I've seen some of the maps from 1.0, and I'm gonna just say personally, probably not worth it.
Yeah.
Gridiania in particular looks like a nightmare to navigate.
So yeah, and it's interesting because actually the mazy aspect of 1.0 had an interesting lore reason behind it, which was that if the elementals didn't like you, they would basically get you
Kill you.
lost in the maze. No, they wouldn't kill you. They'd like put you in the depths of the maze, and you'd never be able to find your way out. And they called people who got caught like in that the wildlings in 1.0.
That's interesting because that pulls off of like actual, like real life Fey legend, how they would like maze you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the origin of the word amazed, actually, is that you would get like mind trickery and then you would feel like you were in a maze and get lost or whatever.
Yeah, that's
But
exactly what happened.
It kind of ties things back to, it makes me think, I think they channeled this as well in the Pixies. But yeah.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, the elementals were not like right now. We think of the elementals as the white mage quests and a little bit of tidbits we get in Grid, but like we think of them as kind of like these. How do you explain the intelligence? Of
you
the
know the
forest?
meme.
It's not like a human mind. It's like a
like a alien intelligence or something.
Yeah,
but you know the meme with the big strong dog and then the little dog that's crying? That's the elementals pre-calamity and post-calamity.
Truth.
I keep meaning to make it, I never made it.
Yeah, Zental says sentient. I mean, obviously they're sentient, but the kind of intelligence is different. It's more like, I don't know, fungal intelligence, where it's doing things and it responds to stimuli, but you're never going to talk to it. And that's why you need the seed seers to communicate, because it requires a special technique and special connection to kind of commune with nature in the way they do. We got some of that lore pretty late. I'm trying to remember which expansion it was. That might have been... We might have gotten the thing I'm thinking about in the Stormblood White Mage. I don't recall.
That was mostly about the Pajali.
Was it just about the Pajali child.
Yeah, that basically the Stormblood White Mage quests were to explain why we couldn't save Haurchefant.
Right. Yeah, fair.
Is a little funny that they were like, no, let's actually go into this a little because people are upset, which understandable.
I know I've spoken a lot already. I want to kind of just give this over to you all, but I do want to say one more thing, which is I don't miss the game 1.0. I quit it for Wrath of the Lich King. It was so bad. But I do miss a lot of aspects of it, including the fact that all zones were non-instanced. You could just traverse. And that's really cool. And a lot of the loading zones, like the bridge going into Gridiania, that you won't even experience now because it's teleport the game. But that bridge, you would actually have walked across, and it took a good 45 seconds. And it's cool, and we've lost that because of the necessities of reinvigorating the title.
And that was something when I played Warcraft, I appreciated that it was one cohesive open world, and it made it feel like a big open world. The issue with that here is there's just a lot of open space with nothing there.
For sure.
So yeah, Gridiania 1.0, fucking terrifying. And then they mention a few times that the elementals have been significantly weakened after the calamity. So they are, when you start ARR, you're just like, oh, the elementals, they keep us safe. They live in the big tree. They're here. And they don't really have that big of a role. Gridiania just kind of pays them lip service. You don't really see the rituals and the consequences of crossing them as much in post ARR as in 1.0, where it's like, oh, I stepped on the wrong flower in the forest. Now they're gonna kill my whole something called. Oh,
are we having problems?
Yeah.
Twitch, please.
Oh, there we go. We're back.
I see 57 dropped frames out of nowhere, 10%.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Well, at least we got 3.
If this becomes a problem, we will be going to just Twitch, okay?
Clearly, the elementals are behind this. They do not
it's
like
their
this
pathetic attempt at the Green Wrath.
So yeah, the Green Wrath, that's basically when the forest gets pissed off at you committing wood sin. There was one instance where Gridiania pissed off the elementals, and they were going to wipe out Gridiania, and then the elementals were like, "Give us all your old people," and so they killed all the old people in Gridiania.
Oh God! Hey, it's like capitalism.
Yeah, right.
I have not heard that one before. I'm not shocked from what I have heard, but I have not heard that one before.
Yeah, that one's actually in the lore book, where a bunch of old people, all the old people in Gridiania had to sacrifice themselves to appease the Green Wrath. And in 1.0, you got a really good look at how this worked, where, someone would do something to offend the elementals, and they would have rituals. And that's what Makedo's Amphitheater is actually for, is for these rituals where the Carpenters Guild made these wooden masks, and they would wear the masks, and they would do these dances to basically transfer the wood sin from themselves to these masks, and kind of just chuck these masks into the forest, and then the elementals can do whatever they want to the masks, because now the masks have the wood sin, not the people.
See, that makes so much more sense why we see all these people wearing masks in Gridiania.
Mm-hmm. Well, the masks that the wood whalers wear,
still,
that's
it's
more,
a different thing, but
it is, but it's still it's due to basically the agreement between Gridiania and the elementals. They wear the masks to kind of represent that agreement. I don't know why, but in hindsight, I'm kind of like, maybe it has something to do with like their origin society, because we do see the elementals in Elpis, and they're like, hey, you know what? We remember these cool dudes who used to wear masks. You should wear masks too.
Oh man, it's a cute little bit of backwriting.
Yeah.
Everyone I liked wore a mask. Wear a mask or I don't like you.
Yeah, pretty much.
Zental Roll says, I thought that was to hide identities. I had kind of thought the same thing, actually.
I mean, I could see it. I haven't seen too much of that being mentioned as much as this is specifically to honor like a symbolic gesture to honor the pact. And yeah,
No, I was thinking that if the elementals somehow remember the old world, then maybe the people wearing masks or wear a mask or I don't like you is like there is kind of their own expression of discomfort with the state of the world, but that's
it's very
just
possible.
I'm gonna pull up some OST and just play it in the background.
Yeah, go for it.
So being one of our resident 1.0 players, tell us a lot about the Shroud. Tell us something about the Shroud, Foul. How difficult was it to navigate? What were the pros and cons about it? Let us know.
Yeah, so playing the actual game, because there was so little to do quest-wise and such a large gap between, say, grinding and doing a story quest, just the way I play games in general, even Elden Ring more recently, I am just exploring everything. It's how I played Skyrim, too. Like, I never beat Skyrim. I just kind of played it for 480 hours. And so I actually explored Gridiania pretty late, but I had gone from Ul'dah over to Limsa on my cat girl, and then I kind of, after a few weeks, rolled the other direction, and I just kept traveling north through Thanalan, and I finally came to the forest where it began. And when I got there, I loved it. I don't know what's wrong with me, but I like creepy forest music, and I love Secret of Mana, and a lot of the songs in that area have that kind of vibe to them, where it's kind of mysterious, don't mess with nature, what's around the next corner, and I really enjoyed it. And one of the Leave Quest hubs, I remember dying a lot because of the specific imps that would spawn having, I think they have high ice damage, and you just didn't have a whole lot to mitigate that, and you had trash gear because quests there were none, and gear you had to get by killing monsters for the materials, and there were no recipes outside of when you got the recipe. There was no book, there was no shortcut. There ended up being Alakazam as a website, I think, had them listed, but initially, like, for the collector's edition, they gave you a notebook, and I assumed that they wanted you to write down the recipes in that book. So,
Yeah,
you just didn't have gear, and I really enjoyed it. And I don't have anything really negative to say about it. We've already talked about how it was very much a maze, but it was also linear in a way, because once you got past your little clearing, there was, a path, and it would either go up or down or straight, and you didn't necessarily know where you were going, but you could get to the city if you tried without much danger.
For me, the transition to 1.0 to 2.0, we get more post-calamity view of Gridiania. We learn a bit more about the city and how the city itself functions, but we lose a lot of the greater Shroud lore in 2.0, like how things function. We don't learn too much about the hedge, as much about the hedge in 2.0 as we do in 1.0, which I don't know if anyone knows about the hedge or what the hedge is.
I don't remember that, no.
So when people first went into the Black Shroud, so the Hearers came into Aldenard, and the element pushed the Elezen out, basically. And the second time, the first time they got pushed into Kurthus, and then they got pushed out of Kurthus somewhat. And they're like, okay, well, let's go to the Shroud, because that's, the Hearers aren't there. Let's just go there. They went into the Shroud, and they got fucking stopped by the Elementals, because the Elementals are like, we don't know who the fuck you are. And at that time, the Ixali ruled the Shroud. And so this is how Gelmora started. The Elezen were basically like, well, we can't live above ground, we can't go back, so let's go underground. And then they built all this stuff. But long story short, the hedge is basically what keeps the elementals from fucking murdering everyone who comes in the shroud that they don't know. So when we say, oh yeah, Gridiania is a hub of commerce, well, all these traders that are coming in and out of the shroud, if it weren't for the hedge, which is maintained and developed by the Conjurers Guild, they would just be fucking killed by the elementals.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Wow.
It's actually how the great trees, the Pajali, used to commune. They're called the hedge trees.
Yeah. It's where the great ones live.
Mm-hmm. And if anything happens to the tree, then basically Gridiania is fucked.
Yeah, which is what was happening in the role quest in Endwalker for tank healer. No, it wasn't healer.
It wasn't healers.
No.
Tank. Yeah, it was tank. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gridania's the new Super Australia.
I remember the level 15 quests with the if you started in Gridiania, they have a bunch of Ixal trying to chop down the oh god, I'm blanking on the name of the tree. Big tree near Gridiania and take the big old crystal at its heart.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Ixal they got kicked out. I don't know why. But basically one day the elementals were like, you suck, get out. And they got kicked out to Zelphatal, and ever since then they've been trying to come back and get back in. Because the elementals actually cursed the Ixal. They used to have wings and feathers that they could fly with when they lived in the Shroud, but once they got kicked out, they lost that, which really sucked because they went to a mountain region with not a lot of trees, and they couldn't fly anymore. So they started starving to death, and
It's really interesting how we got the background on that particular lore in the Fractal Continuum Heart, I believe.
Yep. Blame the Alligans.
It also basically made them learn about building zeppelins and balloons, so there's that.
Very true. Yeah. That was in the late 6th Astral Era. They were like, you know what? We can use cerulean-powered balloons to carry our logging equipment. Let's go. If we can't have the shroud, let's take it.
Sorry, this is a total tangent, but I just have to take a moment and say, wait a minute, this echoes the whole, fall of man thing. Once had wings, now you're wingless, but we will build machinery to ascend back to heaven.
Except that in this case, heaven is a bunch of trees.
Well, I mean, when you do the Beast Tribe quest, they're actually trying to get back to... I think it ends up being Azys Law. I originally thought it was going to be like Sea of Clouds or something, but given that the Ixali come from Azys Law, where they were created, they're just trying to get back to what they remember in Legend as a Paradise.
Yeah, but at this point, they've kind of made it into this mythical thing. So they've romanticized it,
which
obviously.
is what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
It's actually really cool, from a real-life mythological perspective, how these narratives get it's where we used to be. Oh, it used to be so good. Back in there, they used to give us food. Well, that's because you were test subjects. But, the bad stuff gets forgotten. The good stuff gets remembered.
I don't know why I'm getting certain feelings from all of this, but moving on.
I know where you're going with that.
Now you know, that's the thing. Now you can follow Meowth's train of thought.
I'm back in my day. Exactly, Zental.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's kind of... The elementals are really messed up, and they say repeatedly, they don't think like people do, and they really don't. They're just pure Aether. They see Aether, so instead of, seeing people as people, they just see people as collections of Ether, which is why when...
Disperse your Ether.
Yeah, when Condescendent was like, hey, go get this stupid cat soul, who yeeted herself into the light stream, we needed, what was her, Imitra's stick? Her wand, her sister's wand, because her Ether was very similar because they were genetically similar, I guess, but etherically similar.
That's a funny
It does
sidebar
imply
as well,
that
actually.
soul color may be, you may be related to people with similar soul colors.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you were saying something?
Yeah, it's a sidebar on Yashtola's sister Yumitra, but it's funny because when you say sisters, you think like, oh yeah, same family. That's my dad over there. We grew up together. Well, in that tribe, she probably had a lot of brothers and sisters.
Yeah, because
Where
they
they
all
at?
had one
Oh, yeah.
dad.
I believe they are specifically half sisters.
Yeah.
I mean, they would.
I
be.
seem to recall that from the summoner quests.
Yeah. Same dad, different mom. Because Seekers are like that.
There's a
Yeah,
scene
but,
in Shadowbringers where Rahatia is asked, well, you're in charge of the Crystarium now. Shouldn't you be Graha Nun? And he explains that a better translation rather than patriarch is more like breeding male. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's in Seeker lore that being a nun doesn't necessarily mean that you're in charge of the tribe.
It usually
It's-
plays out that way, but it's not the primary meaning. Yeah.
You're a sperm donor.
I think it bleeds into being. It bleeds into that because the main reason the male seekers fight among themselves is to become nuns. So so basically, usually the best fighter is also the nun. So that's also an extra point if you are going to lead at the tribe.
But if they were nuns, then wouldn't they be celibate?
Fuck you, Cobb.
This is a good question. Why did they pick a word that really is just none with an extra H for the ones that aren't celibate?
I think
very
we're
odd.
pronouncing it as none, but I think it's more like noon.
it's noon.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I'm gonna do that now so I don't
and the
annoyed.
H's, that's and also because the H's in Mikoto language, they're difficult to pronounce. It's like a sound we don't have, like a cat's hiss. That basically it's omitted in common speak.
Which actually reminds me of something interesting. If you look at or listen to specifically if you look at the French translation of the game, Mikote are written with long R's. Like, it'll have several R's in a row almost every time they say an R. So they're definitely playing into that,
Yeah. They speak like cats a little bit.
Yeah.
Except
Which
those high civilization cats in our pod.
Yeah. It's far more evident in 11 and annoying because they actually put it in text how they speak with the rolling the R's and all that. Like purr. I can't.
Oh,
do
is
it.
that from 11? Nice.
Yeah, that is from 11. It's kind of annoying in 11 because they overdo it, but yeah, that's very much an 11 thing. I will say that the Mikote had a really, really outsized impact on the development of Gridiania because of the Seeker Hunters specifically wandering into the forest, and so the Gridanian bow techniques are actually developed from Mikote short bows, which they use for hunting, and the Elezen longbows. So it's kind of a weird middle bow that developed in Gridania because of the Mikote hunters that were poaching in the forest. And then they had a small war. They killed a bunch of each other, and they were like, let's be friends. Because that's how these things go.
Yeah, but the seeker, but the tribe mostly lives in the Black Shroud. They're the keepers of the moon, not
the moon cats. I know.
Yeah. So I was kind of,
which is weird because it was Seeker Hunters.
anyways, in any case, I mean, we know that geographically it's not that weird because we have Seeker tribes in Gridiania too. So
yeah, they're damn Seekers breeding like rabbits.
and
Rats.
and actually, if we go by Stormblood reference, at least the M tribe was really expansive to the point that it had 2 nuns. So yeah, back in their time. So and we're talking the
Interesting.
fringes, which is and basically next to this route. So I'm guessing some of them would have snuck into this route for hunting purposes.
Yep.
This is all, of course, speculation.
Still, it's really interesting.
It is. There was a lot of good stuff in 1.0. A lot of it got ejected, which is sad. Basically, I don't know if anyone's played it or gone through the story of 1.0 for Gridiania, but it's basically you go there, you meet Ida and Papalimo, who fall out of an airship.
Yeah, they do.
What?
They fall out of an airship.
That's the first scene.
my
They
God.
fall out of an airship and are ganged up upon by elementals and wolves, I think.
Yeah, I think it's wolf. Yeah, it is wolves.
Wolves in a tree.
And then they get saved by it's either Isumiyan, I think.
Yeah, Isumiyan is kind of a side character in this game.
Yeah,
but he was not then.
Yeah, he was a pretty major character. He led the Wood Dweller expeditions into the forest. Now he just kind of sits underground in the Conjurers Guild. Because I think I call him Oat Pepsi, the Pepsi app guy from 1.0. He led the Conjurers Guild, but he left to go do something else. I don't remember what. But yeah, basically, it's about how Gridiania doesn't trust people who aren't from Gridiania. And they're really shitty to outsiders, and the reason is because of they don't want people trouncing into the woods and pissing off the
Demanding
elementals.
their grandma dies.
And then they have to give up grandma because like people are shitty and stupid. So it's funny because there's this kind of subculture in Gridiania where they're like they don't believe the elementals actually exist because they do such a good job of managing it. And so there's this kid who's like, I don't believe the elementals are real. And he goes out and he burns a bunch of trees. And so the elementals were like, we're going to fucking kill this kid. And that's the plot line of 1.0 Gridiania and just like dealing with that and the fallout from that. Yeah, Alex is right. Gridania's intro for the new players in 2.0 is very rude in a xenophobic way, but even still, they're way more welcoming than they were in 1.0. Like, when you get to Gridiania in 2.0, if you start a character there, the first guy's like, hey, I don't know you. What are you doing here? When it's like giving you the tutorial, but in 1.0, they're like, you need to fucking leave now.
Gives me good memories. I originally started my character in Gridiania, so that was my introduction to the game.
Oh, so you remember all this.
You broke up. What was that?
You remember all of this stuff.
Oh yeah. I mean, I've since played through the other intros, but that's the one that was like my formative experiences in city and all that jazz.
I remember going out into Gridiania and ARR and just being like, this is really pretty. It's really nice. I don't know why the music reminds me of Final Fantasy X, but I'm with it. And like, it didn't really feel scary until I got to the South Shroud. And then everything out-leveled me because it sent me there at like level 20 and everything's level 34. And I was just like, oh my god.
Yeah, you're supposed to like not go very far. That I struggled with that too.
Yeah. And so like the South Shroud was the first time I really ever felt like, you know, this was a dangerous place. But in 1.0, like you step outside of Gridiania and like the little ladybugs are like salivating at you and they're like, we're gonna fucking eat you. Like everything was gonna kill you in 1.0.
I keep wishing I could walk around still. I wish there was some... I have looked, and maybe I didn't look hard enough, but I know nobody plays it, but I would certainly love to walk around, even if it's just an emulation with my own avatar at the end.
I think there are still private servers.
Just for the experience of walking around again. I mean, combat was not fun. The game itself, I cannot state this enough. Like, the change to an action-oriented combat system and many more quests and variety of experience, it just overpowers anything 1.0 could have offered. But there is a vibe that is missing. So,
yeah, I will say that this is like all of this stuff is in 3 quests. That's all there was. There was, you know, your first quest, your middle quest, and then your level 15 quest, and that was the whole story. That was it. That's all there was. Whereas here it's like, 20 quests before you get your airship pass.
Yeah.
But I just think it's really interesting because you get a lot of background for what the different areas of Gridiania are for. So the Botanist Guild is, a farming area that was set aside by the elementals for the people of Gridiania to be able to grow their food. That was donated by a wealthy family in the name of Nafika. And it's really interesting going back to 1.0 because if you look at some of the text from 1.0 where the elementals talk to the hearers of Gridiania, and the hearers are the people who can hear what the elementals are saying. They're usually the people who are the seed seers, of leaders of Gridiania. And the elementals tell them, think of the Warrior of Light, who wasn't the Warrior of Light back then, Ida and Papalimo, as I'm paraphrasing here, but doing the will of Nafika. And had I known that, like, years ago, I would have probably not been like, well, 12 are fake, they don't actually exist. Because if the elementals knew about them and acknowledged them, then clearly there was something there. And I just thought it was really interesting that the elementals were not only aware of them, but, used them in order to convey their will.
There would still have been the question of, do they still exist, though? Right?
True. I don't see why they wouldn't, but yeah, that's a good point.
I'm thinking which animal avatar form Nofika may take around the Tools Group.
What's a farm animal?
Sheep? No sheep.
No, not a sheep. I don't know. But I just thought it was really interesting. And so where I was going with this was the Botanist Guild was actually the one that provided the lumber to make the masks for the wood whalers and the rituals, which they called the rites. And then whenever someone did something really messed up, yeah, actually, you know what? Cow. I'm gonna go with cow.
How about a deer?
I mean, I was thinking about cow just because
I know why you... Arden's not here. We don't need that. Anyway, so they provided the wood, and the Carpenters Guild would fashion it into weapons or masks or whatever. And then in Miketo Amphitheater, that's where all the rituals would take place. Now we just use it for seasonal events. We don't really get a sense of what it's for anymore. It's just kind of this amphitheater that's there for no reason. But that it's for those rituals, and that's why it's there. Alex says, the reason why I mentioned Meowth earlier was that I speculate that the actions of the adventurer 5 years prior probably made the xenophobia more laid back, and that's why she explains the Warriors of Light so early. That's actually really true, because at the end of the story, they kind of relax on it a bit. They're like, okay, maybe outside people aren't all giant shitbags.
Yeah, I actually liked that angle of it, especially because they introduced very early on, like right when you're talking to Meowth and someone comes by and it's like, if they weren't inside, they'd have spit on the floor, and they're like, adventurers, and she's like, now, and then at the end you kind of get the whole. I think it's the bard quests as well. Kind of go into this with the Snooty Ellison and the Mikote. There's a lot of like little stuff in Gridiania that they weave it in. Yeah, because
with
you'll never be a real archer. Yeah.
I love Gitalo. He's an asshole.
And Leovin is just like, you guys. Or not Leovin. Yeah, Leovin. I'm battling.
Yeah, I was gonna say it. Like the ARR bard quest, like made my brain leak out of my ear.
In a good way or in a bad way?
In a bad way. It was very dry.
Very tropey.
It was. Let me tell you a story about where this came from.
Yeah.
And there's also the Lancers Guild that goes into the Dust White Ellison xenophobia as well.
My character, a Dusk White Ellison Lancer. Just imagine the face.
Yep.
You know the one. Zental Roll says there's a good way to have your brains leaking. Yes, when an attractive character makes my brain leak out of my ears, that's good.
No.
Like Hesper's.
And then I'm thinking of the classes as the Gridiania, and two of them actually deal with this xenophobia Gridanians have with anything that's not Gridanian. And then there's the Conjurers Guild that deals with Sylphie and the Elementals, but I guess that's a given, so to speak. So yeah. But yes, I mean I know there's a number of crafter guilds in Gridiania. I've done a few. I mean, I'm not over level 50 in any of them. I'm actually more like level 20. But they actually give insight into how damn careful the crafters in Gridiania have to be around the elementals.
Yeah, it's like you get to live in this very nice woods, bountiful nature and all that, but you have to be like on your toes all the time. It's kind of interesting. It's also interesting because they have this like the Gridiania starter quests before it before it joins up with the other cities and the you go visit everywhere and meet the twins talking about politics. God, there's a bit where your character becomes the emissary in this like ritual sort of thing that they do, and that's when you like pass out and have to go wake up in the inn. But it's interesting because you get like a special crafted mask.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm like looking at Elidibus's role, I'm looking at this, and I'm like, well, it ain't necessarily, but boy, there could be some like faint memory that was taken and then like twisted over time. I don't know, it's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's not, I mean, knowing context, it's likely that many concepts, but no pun intended, from the ancients and the ensemble of the theories have stuck fragmented in collective unconscious mind, and likely they interpret differently in every different shard. Not just different cultures, different shards too.
Well, kind of like how the Knights Bless, we saw the same thing where they had the fake name and the real name to use as kind of a metaphorical mask, whereas in Gridiania they have very literal masks.
Though the Knights Bless is curious because the Knights Bless actually is a religion that's fairly recent. Only started after the fall of the Church of the First Light, which was in the first time 100 years ago.
Yes, the false prophet.
So the fact that they replicate something that's in kind of our current time that was 12k years ago is kind of interesting. Throughout Shadowbringers, that we learned that everyone has this bit of memory of the old world stuck in their mind, and the trigger is of course the star shower.
Which is interesting because at the very throughout 1.0 in the Gridiania quest, you see the star shower repeatedly, and everyone sees it, and no one's like, "Oh wait, yes."
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things they retconned over.
Not really, because in the Crystarium, during that cutscene in which Elizabeth glamours the star shower, not everyone echoes.
Right.
Only certain people.
Oh yeah.
But absolutely
nobody at all
no
is
one.
like,
Yeah, absolutely no one. And I know it's because they hadn't really developed the Echo in 1.0. I get that.
It was a little different, as I recall, too. Yeah.
It was very different.
Could
It was more like
things or whatever.
time walking than just being able to see the past.
New
Now, I feel like even now they don't really have a good grasp on what to do with the Echo.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, in Elpis, when they're like, let me tell you everything about the Echo, and then they emit 2/3 of it. So,
yeah, like...
so yeah, they're like, oh yeah, you can see the past, but, you know, never mind the feeling part, and we're not even going to talk about the future, so...
Did you say new theory, Neela?
Oh, I was just going to make a shitposty joke that, the Echo was actually stronger prior to rejoining.
Yes.
Which doesn't make any sense. Or maybe, you know, the world was weaker and we could kick its ass and travel time. I'm gonna incur some wrath here. I think it is better to have it not be a time travel thing by and large, though, because that gets real bad real fast.
Yeah.
No, they definitely made good updates to the Echo, because it was kind of broken in 1.0. Yeah, they are recontextualizing a lot of 1.0 content lately. When they mentioned the Atomos invasion, that was kind of interesting, because that was kind of a thing that the devs were doing to mess with people, kind of like the Great Gubu Wall, which is also canonically mentioned.
Yeah, and I like that they're picking what works to bring back, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, recycling stuff is basically a video game developer or a content creator's in general bread and butter. I mean, it's basically...
it's not recycling if you make it something new, in my opinion.
Right. No, I agree.
But yes, absolutely.
I would say it is laying the groundwork and then building upon what's already there. In some cases, yeah, it's a retcon, like the Star Shower Awakening, the Echo, but maybe, you know, a lot of people in Gridiania just weren't paying attention. So
they
were looking at it, but they were thinking about maybe I left the iron on.
There was a comment in chat from Alex. I like the Echo, but I wish at some point a player could use it without being inconvenienced. And I immediately thought of how, like, we always having past viewing epileptic seizures, and then for some reason the villains don't stab us at that exact moment.
You know what I really want? What I really want with the Echo is to get someone else's perspective of what we're doing, and us just like staring off into space in the middle of like a battle.
There have been a few jokes.
They're like, "Are you okay?"
We got. To be fair, we got one instance that I recalled, which was Stormblood, when. Shortly before Doma Castle, when he sends us to patrol Yansha, and we find about this old man who is spying for the Guardians, and he was the officer who basically spoke with Yotsu's step parents. And found about her, and they were discussing Asahi first, and that's when we got the a bit of backstory in Jotsu's childhood. But it happened just as the old man was about to strike the word of light, and Ali says like, "What the fuck?" After you come back, and then she's like, and you find the guy dead, and Alice basically ran to me because you stared off just as the guy was about to kill you.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Isomo. I'd love to see a video like that, drool and a blank face. The warrior's like, just like, oh. Now say
more of this though.
For crying out loud.
Yeah, I remember in some of the Shadowbringers role quests, they would gripe at you for having them, but they usually put us in a situation where it was like we're just observing, and they're like, "Let's go attack," and then they look over and you're just staring off into space, holding your head,
drooling, and
it's perfect.
To something, I mean, it wasn't even the Echo. It was when fighting Elidesinos at the end of Gimli the Dark, which was, if not for Estinian, because it was one of the unfortunate timing summons from
Yes,
Crystal
the cat
Cat.
man. Yeah, the cat man. Screwing with history. We were supposed to win that fight. The cutscene told me so.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah, need more rejoinings.
Mhm.
I don't think it would have been as big an issue if we would have lived.
Yeah, because we would have been killed by the Black Rose. So there's that.
Yeah, if we'd have lived, I don't think people would have made a big deal out of it.
So there's that. Yeah.
I assume it's more that Heidelin was like, wait, no, I saw that person in the past. They can't die. Again, though, it's not like God knew that, so it's weird. It just, I don't know. Opening the door for time travel is just so dangerous because then you get to Elpis and people are like, no, wait, we want to stay. And they're like, well, you can't because of the time. And you're like, well, we made a branch before. Well, let's make another one.
So
Well, you can't do that. Tears running down their face. Well, you're the ones that made the rules. I don't want to tell you.
one of the things that I've picked up on and I'm sorry to harp on this, and Meowth is going to be ecstatic. One of the things I picked up on while going through the 13 trilogy is that a lot of the foundations of 14 are rooted in that game, except for 13-2, which is the time fuckery one. And so I'm just waiting for that to crop up.
We're dealing now with Blood of Darkness, so
Alex said, how did that old Elidibus
And
quote
it
about
is
the
an
echo
echo.
go again?
An echo,
An
of,
echo
a
of a symphony. Yep. Which then we see the symphony, and it's like a 3-piece string quartet.
It's a very nice piece of music, but it's only got like 4 instruments. It's just a quartet.
Well, they use it again in Pandemonium Part 2.
Mhm.
They just don't mention it by name.
Yeah, well, it's the powers to break down the barriers of reality, which is just soul sex.
Yeah.
La Habrea shows us the past.
It's a deep intimacy. One you should not extend to crazy people. Don't stick it in crazy. And if you do, don't mind Mel with crazy.
I mean, to be fair, I mean, I guess if all the ancients had this power to kind of throw down barriers and reach out to or glimpse someone else's past, that would have to be in their culture very kind of regulated or by principle not to do that to anyone you come across the street, because like if you can basically intrude upon your neighbor's state of mind, soul, feeling, whatever, it's like, yeah, that's kind of awkward.
AC Gears and R says, glad it's not Lightning Returns. I don't want 14 to do a Majora's Mask with time limit and Falling Moon. I mean, we already had the Falling Moon, and Lightning Returns is just Shadowbringers, so.
This isn't the subject of the day, but since
no, it's not. You're right. We are on a tangent now. We got to get back on track.
Hey, one more. I want to add a little bit of thing, even though it's me being bad. I really enjoyed that they had the same lines as Igayorm La Habrea's merge. Yeah,
it's really similar.
It's
very similar, yeah.
And it's clear that that's a technique for doing it, and that's really cool to me.
Yeah.
But if that's such an intimate thing, that kind of canonizes my headcanon relationship, and I'm sticking with that.
Yeah.
Well, that's fair.
Like, my wife's dead anyway. Hey, you're
exactly.
hot. And also she was crazy and evil.
That's why she's hot.
I mean, you're not wrong.
But so yeah, back to Gridiania. There's a lot to talk about here in regard to the elementals specifically still. When you look at specifically 1.0 and how they do the elemental stuff, a lot of it sorry, a lot of it is very similar to Shinto in that it's all about purifying and expunging corruption. And if you play the Conjurer questline and the White Mage questline, it's very similar to that, going out into the world and cleansing the corruption and purifying. And a lot of that is what Gridiania is based around in practice, the practice of the kami and all that. Even though they don't call it the kami, they reserve that for the Eastern cultures, which kind of resembles it, but not so much in practice, more in the reverence. But in the actual act, it's a lot more how Gridiania deals with it. And on top of that, a lot of Gridiania proper in the city has a lot of strangely Native American influence, which is interesting. Like the medicine wheel, some of the gates that we see, for example. Um, I'm trying to remember. There's like the black bear or the white wolf. That comes from the medicine wheel of Native American culture.
Me a bit of that the thing about that disease that only affects the here,
Right.
and how someone had the great ideas back in, I think it was the conquest of the Native Americans about distributing
The
the
blankets.
blankets,
Yeah, intentionally infecting them with biological
exactly.
agents that they're not
Mhm.
at all protected against.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, basically one of the first use of bioweapons in mankind. Not the first, but one of
No,
them.
but a very early and very, very gross one.
Yeah.
So I mean, I won't go into that. It's too gross.
I would
But
love
yeah,
to talk
I
to you
mean-
about that another time, though. Not in
Yeah,
glee,
we should-
but in truth.
in fascination, because people always been a little crazy.
Mm-hmm. That's no joke. Yeah. But yeah, but that thing about the heroes being the only ones, because if I recall correctly, the disease doesn't affect Elderson, right?
Yeah, the creeping death
The
does
creeping
not
death,
affect
that.
Elzen, and it decimated the hero population. And it's really interesting because again, during the tank role quest, everyone told me the tank role quest is the most boring one, and then I did it, and I'm like, this is amazing! Like it gives you so much.
I like
more
it.
Which role quests?
Like the Gridiania role quests for tanks, where you learn about the creeping death, and you get all this background lore on old Gridiania that
yeah, that's true.
we didn't necessarily have before, and it's fantastic. All we knew was the creeping death. It ravaged Gridiania for like 5 years, had almost a 100% mortality rate, and now we learn that chains appear on the skin, that it's excruciatingly painful. People are terrified of it, even though it happened like 300 years ago. People are still terrified of this thing, even though they have a cure, which it just destroyed Gridania's hero population for about 5 years. And then this alchemist from Ul'dah was like, I can make money on this. And he went over there and he developed a cure. And ever since then, like, it's not really been a thing, but people are still terrified of it. So it would be like us today being terrified of the bubonic plague. So I just think that's kind of weird because there is a
maybe
cure.
not. It's not been. Well, maybe you're right.
I mean, there is a
Yeah.
cure, and they said that the cures weren't working on the one that appeared, which is why I think people got so scared of it again.
That's right.
Because they were like, "Oh, it's a new variant of it that can't be cured."
Well, even today, and we've had some very small, surprising.
Yeah,
outbreaks
polio's
of-
back.
Yeah, there's stuff that's coming back, and yeah, it'd be a big problem if the Black Plague came back, and it's not exterminated. It's just not something we interact with.
Hmm. But I do think it's interesting that we see in the Gridanian role quest specifically, we see this kind of ostracization of people who are marked by this blasphemy, and people think, oh, they've got the creeping death, and we see them treated exactly like the Grebulov treated people who are or they're plague people, and it's a really interesting parallel. I just realized.
I realized that in general, just in cultures, people really don't like anyone who's sick, like lepers, people with leprosy, this kind of all of these major diseases that were endemic to society. They were all kind of ostracized. It doesn't seem different.
No,
Because you don't want to die.
bring out your dead.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's something that can't really be helped in the sense that it's the fear of, oh, this person is going to go in here and kill basically everyone. So
Yeah, I will absolutely agree with that, Alex the Swan guy. Gridiania lore was the best part of the Gridianian role quest, but it definitely lacked fun and energy because Kanye Senna,
Kanye.
yeah, Kanye Senna literally sucks the fun out of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
And yeah, polio is definitely an American thing this time because we are.
I mean, we
idiots and not
we
vaccinated.
recently had an outbreak here of how do you call it, pox?
Depends
So-
on
Which one?
Smallpox,
Chickenpox,
chickenpox, cowpox.
Pox.
monkeypox.
That one.
The one
yeah.
that comes from mimics in Deep Dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
We don't differentiate. We differentiate between the poxes here. There are many poxes,
Oh, okay.
and they're all mostly bad.
There's one that has
Anyways.
Romana after its name too.
That's a
Sorry.
good joke. That's a good joke.
Yeah, I likely don't get it, but that's just me. Ignore me.
Really, a history
Uh,
buff like you?
Alex, yes, I'm not shy about that. Get vaccinated. I'm just putting that out there. Anyway,
I mean, apologies. I don't know I'm not a native speaker. Names of diseases. It's hard for me. Okay.
No, it's the longest period of peace in Roman history.
No, I meant about the pox and stuff because I don't know what I don't know
no,
exactly
totally.
the difference between
Yeah.
pox and smallpox.
It was a play on words. Ayumi did.
yes, Zental,
Oh.
we will have vaccinate yourself against Comaran stickers.
That's actually our first line of merchandise. It's a vaccine.
Don't listen to him. He's an idiot.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, when have I not been to you guys? I come on your 13 streams and I troll, and then I leave.
That's the best part.
I doubt it.
No, it seriously is.
Zent, if that was the case, I would have made plenty.
No, there is no vaccine against that. Ayumi has to suffer.
Yeah, if they ever come up with one for brain rot, maybe I'll be functional again. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
The
No,
brain
you're-
rot is
No.
terminal in my
You're
case.
a terminal, exactly.
Yeah,
You know it.
yeah. I'm
Terminal
beyond.
against time
I
travel.
be. I beyond salvation.
I'm
Back
looking
to
through.
Gridiania.
Yeah.
Oh, have we talked about? I know this isn't kind of or quite related to Gridiania, but it's close enough that it might as well be Gelmora.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So we briefly touched on it when I was talking about the
Because it
elephant.
needs to be said, because it is
Yeah.
a part of the Shroud's history, and it
It
does have to do with the elementals.
And it does have to do with someone else in history, which is really interesting. So I had always, when I thought about the Fifth Era, I was like, oh yeah, it's there's 13 civilizations. It's the convocation playing civilization. Gelmora is interesting because when the Ellison went underground, they kind of founded their underground city, which eventually became Gelmora. But the Hures eventually moved into the Shroud, discovered that the elementals were the ones that were killing everyone, and they were like, you know what's a great place to go? Underground. Let's go there. But the Ellison were already there. And so the elementals were chasing the Hures and killing them from behind. And in front of them, there were Ellison that were blocking them and killing them from in front. And they were like, we can't kill the elementals, but we can kill the Ellison. So let's kill the Ellison. So
Survival.
there was a 30-year
Survival, though.
war underground under the Black Shroud until they just got tired of it. And they were like, you know what? Let's just like the Ellison and the Mikote. The Ellison seemed to fight fucking everybody. The Ellison And the Hures are like, you know what? Let's work together and make a giant underground city that will be an awesome place to live. And that's how Gelmora started.
And that's your 200 floors, everybody.
Yeah, and it lasted about 300 years. And they used the caduceus as its symbol, as a symbol of unity, which is really interesting. Because I was doing a dive on this before, and the caduceus is also the staff of Hermes. And I was just looking at that, and I was like, what if Gelmora, or the remnants of the civilization that gave rise to Gelmora, was the one founded by Fandaniel. So Gridiania I kind of now associate with Fandaniel because it's Hermes now. And
it was founded by Amon.
The Convocation playing Civilization. This is brilliant.
Exactly. It fuels that now. And it's interesting because you think about the caduceus, which you see in hospitals, you see on ambulances. It has nothing to do with medicine. It represents commerce and negotiation, which is why it was perfect for Gelmora, because you've got two opposing sides that negotiated and now are a very big trade hub in Gridiania. So the intertwined serpents are, the human and the Elezen. And I just thought it was really interesting because a lot of people associate this with medicine, and it has nothing to do with medicine. But the rod of Asclepius, which is the single snake on the pole, that does. So if you see a hospital that has the two snakes, they're there to make
money.
They want your money. They don't want to heal you. Don't go to that hospital.
It's become confused. A lot of people have conflated the two or are not understood, but that is 100% true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So just to make that clear, the symbol of Asclepius. I mean, we have two. The entwined serpent is the caduceus. That's Hermes' staff. And the single snake with it's usually a cup. That's a symbol of medicine and how do you call it, pharmacy. That's the one you should find in medicine related
healing
stuff. Yeah. It's different. So yeah. One snake medicine, two snakes commerce.
Yep. And yeah, it is Zental. We don't talk about that. So yeah. Gelmora is, like I said, it lasted about 300 years, and they just dug and dug and dug and dug. Unlike the dwarves, they never dug too deep or found anything until you go into Deep Dungeon, and then they moved in after the fact. But what happened was the Ixali got booted out of the forest, and so Gelmoran mages were like, "Hey, there's an opening up there. Let's try and talk with the elementals." And it took them 50 years to figure out how to talk to the elementals and actually get a dialogue going with them. But once they did, they really quickly reached an understanding. Yeah, that's the caduceus and the rod of Asclepius. There you go. You got a side by side. So yeah, look for the one without the wings. Caduceus means money.
Think of it as, that little art that people will do of your wallet or your dollars flying away. That's that.
No. But yeah. So generally, once they started talking with the elementals, I forgot the guy's name. I think it was Yorin. Yorin Lightheart. He was the one who actually successfully led communication with the elementals and negotiated them living on the surface. And overnight, Gelmora vanished. Everybody moved out. They were like, all right, we live on the surface now. They carved out their own little area, and that was it. Gelmora ceased to exist.
Who on Earth wants to live underground on purpose?
I was going to say that seems so weird to me because, no, I do agree. Living underground is much less pleasant, generally speaking. But people also get really set in their ways. So I assume I'm just gonna headcanon that there are a bunch of like older people who are holdouts, and it's like, no sir, not moving from this spot.
Nope,
Yeah,
no,
maybe.
sir. I like my shrooms and darkness.
Or like, is it
That's right.
really safe? We've been down here a while. Maybe we should like
Yeah,
be a
yeah,
little
I can imagine
conservative
some
on
people
this.
being scared.
Mhm.
Again, it's just a story, obviously, but I look at that
Yeah.
and I'm like, it's a little weird behavior.
I mean, Lamb's Dalamud, they live in there now.
That's true.
Don't know why, but they like it.
And if you go a bit too deep, you'll find a leech from Tactics Ogre.
Mhm. Who moved in after the fact?
Yeah, he's
Yeah.
a cool guy.
It is very much an American thing, Zental. Anyway, so yeah, that's Gelmora. It's just this massive labyrinth of tunnels underground, and we see it a lot. Thousand Maws. What's the other one? Oh my god, Tamtara. So all of those
Oh.
are parts of Gelmora.
Yeah, and the
Yeah, let's
Moontoy
ask
sellers
our
go into it
resident
a little
Dust
too,
Wipe.
don't they?
What's that?
Go ahead.
Our resident Duskwhite has been asked a question.
I was saying something about the I don't actually remember. I'm not I don't RP as a Duskwhite because I'm lame. I just my main is. But I think that there's some truth to that. I thought there was some people that stayed, at least they stayed longer or something. Man, I'm gonna have to look that up actually. Now I'm wondering. And I'm trying to remember because it's something I've looked at before and have since forgotten.
I mean, I could look
Yeah,
it
I
up
think-
in the book real quick.
I think the
'cause
Moontoy
that's where it is.
sellers. Oh yeah, you mentioned the book earlier, and I was excited because I finally have them. I haven't had a chance to look
Yeah.
through them yet, but I've got them. Lovely
I-
gift from my sister.
We went to Barnes and Noble the other day, and they had a stack of 1 and 2, and I was like, "Oh my god!"
Nice.
Now no one has any excuse. They are everywhere now.
Meowth noises.
Yes, there are curious pockets of Garlemald in the Shroud. That's from the first invasion, 15 years prior to the Calamity. I believe if you go into, you can fly around the East Shroud
has
now.
some.
Yep. There's an entire path area that is just covered in Magitech ruin. And you're probably thinking, well, why didn't the Elementals do anything to stop this? Why didn't the Elementals attack the Garleans?
Because
I
it's
am
just
thinking that.
people, and nature is
Magitech.
Magitech. Yeah, maybe they did, but we've got laser cannons and stuff.
Exactly.
So it's
Don't
like,
need the Elementals. We have fire.
I mean, when it comes to the notion of, say, steel, in most fairy tales and stuff, fairies and fire entities, they don't like metal and steel. It's actually one way
Yeah.
to ward yourself against this. So
iron
if you're
specifically, yeah.
So if you're basically a Garlean legatus clad from head to toe in what's it called, the metal the Garleans use? I forgot. I know it has a name. What's the name of the metal they use? It's a special alloy. Ugh.
I don't know. You guys are doing the Garlean deep dive.
Anyway.
But that stuff, yes.
Yeah, that thing.
Wait, you mean Cermet or something else?
Cermet.
That's it.
Because I assume
They do use steel though. One of the primary materials is Garlean steel. So
yes. So they go into the forest and imagine the elements also trying to kill them with maybe hurling a bear to them or something like that. And the guy in the Magitech armor is going to just laugh and laser beam the bear, and there's that. So
Well, keep in mind they also have etheric dampening armor.
True. Yeah. I mean, it makes sense because I think the Guardians actually plate their armor and stuff against magic, because the only one thing they're I mean, the thing that can cause most harm to their armies, which makes sense considering their experiences. Like,
Oh, I should add.
I think that's
just a slight on Cermet what it is, because when we see a Cermet in the Praetorium, it looks an awful lot like cement with like metal bars attached to it. But Cermet is a real thing. It's just a composite material composed of ceramic and metal, so it can be anything at all.
Oh.
But it's probably less heavy than you'd expect out of a cement wall. It's ceramic plus metal.
yeah, that's why.
Interesting.
That's why you see the Garlean. It makes sense, and it's actually fairly realistic that you see the legatuses basically being piles of metal, doing physical feats, because an armor made of this stuff wouldn't be as heavy as a steel armor.
But it might be brittle, and it
this is-
certainly wouldn't be flexible. So it's still a curiosity for sure.
Still,
so-
of course.
Ceramic is used in some I don't know the details. I just remember that the sappy plates we wore in Afghanistan were some kind of a ceramic used to stop bullets, which makes sense because the Guardians do use bullets.
Yep.
Perhaps,
absolutely.
anyway, could be something like that. Also, I do believe on the vulnerability to magic side, that's why Gaius's armor goes all shiny and gold. It's like a
Yep.
special
That's the
protection.
etheric dampener.
I
Yeah.
have a
Yeah.
wiki up. Other applications of Cermet include in the U.S. and British Army, they've had extensive research on the development of Cermets. These include the development of lightweight ceramic projectile-proof armor for soldiers.
Yep, that sounds like the one. Now, if you ask me what SAPI stands for, I can't remember. But
They also use it
that's
in
the
tank
stuff.
armor, apparently.
Mm.
So this is a real thing.
Interesting.
apparently.
Yeah, I had no idea it was
Yeah.
a real thing. That's fascinating to me.
Same.
We out here learning.
Yep, me too. I was like, "What is Cermet?" And I'm just pulled up a tab.
I knew about these metals because not the exact applications, but I learned that I knew that it was a real thing because I once did a search on metal symbolism, then stumbled upon the scholar ability by the name of galvanization, the shields and stuff. So there's that. Yeah.
And Alex, please look forward to the sermon on Servant.
Hey.
Posted by Neela.
Talking about the East Shroud, which is one of the areas that I hate, but now I don't hate as much as when I
Now that we can fly there, it's great.
It's a lot
Yes.
nicer
Oh,
now.
I miss
Yeah.
walking.
No.
No, I
You
don't
can walk. Hey,
I
you can
don't-
walk anytime you want.
I don't.
You don't have
I
to
don't-
jump and fly.
I don't mean I don't miss walking around fucking Larskull with the whole take 2 steps, a horde of mortals just following you. No, I don't miss that.
Does the Sylphlands use the old music track? I can't place what it plays out there. I know it changes.
It plays both the 2 different themes.
It does, but is it
the
the original?
Sylphland-
Is it the original Shroud track? I had it. I had it
Maybe-
playing earlier. I just
maybe
don't
for
recall. I'll
Lars-
have to log in for Larkskull.
Maybe for
the
Larskull.
The Sylphlands in general, that whole area.
The Sylphlands is different. It's more like Sylph playful theme. Larskull is more
No.
like dread like.
So, but before the Beast Tribe, before the tribe was even introduced as a thing, that whole area was called the Sylphlands.
Ah,
That whole region is where they live.
Mm-hmm.
How
interesting.
dare you call it a beast tribe?
It just
Right.
They're
comes
just
out.
tribes now. In truth, though, I'm kind of glad. Like, I like that shift in direction as Eorzeans are shifting how they view these people.
I like it, but
But I'm
if
still
you
going to call it that because I'm going to forget.
if you start a game over from 2.0, is it still called tribes or is it called
If it's
beast
just
tribes?
Probably
called
not.
tribes, I don't think it's clear enough. That can mean
Because
anything.
it should be called beast tribes until the end, until we hit Endwalker.
Paglathon-ish.
Yeah, until Paglathon, exactly.
Yep.
I think that would be ideal, but I don't know how difficult that would be to implement.
Mm-hmm.
Probably easier than rewriting it in the whole game.
Yeah.
Because
Oh,
it's just
that's a very good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, sylphs are flying lettuce. Come at me.
Yeah.
No,
You mean
no
come
one's
at
going
you?
to.
That's
no.
literally what they are. The cabbages. Sometimes
To
they call them the
the-
cabbages.
That's
To-
not,
to the
that's not a
spend my
piece.
time-
That's a vegetable.
I still remember that dub contest video with Ramu. I doth spend my time with floating cabbages. One day I'm gonna make myself a whole batch of coleslaw.
Hey now.
So do we want to move on to the next area within the shroud?
Kakaroti just says, I wonder if sylphs and mandragoras are related.
You know, they're actually on a
Yeah.
pretty similar scale.
Similar
That's
height.
entirely possible.
Yeah.
At
Their
least,
little faces.
at least you can understand the sylphs when they speak. I'm just
I mean, I
imagining-
understand.
They don't
I
speak
understand
in
the.
PlayStation emojis.
I
think the noises that the Mandragora court make are just adorable. Yes, they're horrifying screeches. I don't know why, but it strikes as adorable to me.
I understand them when they die.
Oh,
Oh, wrong. So next
Yeah.
area.
That would be either Amdapur.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking if we're going east route, I was thinking of the Shrine of the 12. But,
Yeah. The
We'll get
only
there.
fifth
We'll
era
get to where
structure.
people
Still,
married.
Mm-hmm,
that's the only fifth era structure still standing there.
mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
want
Let's
that
go
be the
to
location of
Amdapur
another
because
deep
we've
dungeon.
got history to talk about there.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah,
you wanna-
Amdapur. Or no, or are we? Sorry.
So I like Amdapur, and I kind of want to touch on white magic before we dive super into it, and that the elementals
You've got
are
fairies.
very white magic is super illegal in 14, and not so much illegal, but just a very closely guarded secret. The elementals did not want the secret of white magic to get out. They are terrified of white magic, and the reason is because so black magic uses what was it? So red magic uses the ether inside of you. Black magic uses ambient ether, I believe.
But we'll
White magic uses the ether of others. So
or yourself.
You're-
Or yourself.
Yeah,
I think it
or
kind
yourself.
of taps into nature.
but
yeah.
you're not supposed to do that, and that's what the Conjurer questline is about because it kills you really fast when you do that. But the reason the elementals are terrified of it is because they're made of ether, and white magic literally can suck them dry and turn them into spells. And so they were like, we cannot let this get out until the Pajali were like, hey, we really need this. And they're like, all right, but only you guys and the people we say can be white magicians are allowed to use this. And so when it's kind of, that's why it's kind of a big deal when we get to be a white mage, because it's like, you're not a Pajali, but they're okay with it. And
They're like, what?
yeah, oh, Kanye-sen's brother is just like, the fuck? Is it Ryo? I think his name
Yeah,
is.
Ryo's.
Ryo.
Senna is just like, I do not accept this.
No,
I-
Raya is the sister. The
Oh, okay.
brother is
Oh, yeah,
Arun.
you're right.
Arun, yes,
Arun.
Arun Senna.
I
Thank
always
you.
forget if the the single letter first or second is male.
Yeah.
First letter, single letter is male. Middle letter is female.
I should remember. Oh, at Pepsi Pepsi.
Yeah.
That's
Oh,
the
Pepsi app.
rule of thumb
The Pepsi app. Do you have it?
because he starts with O.
But yeah, that's white magic is freaking terrifying in this game. Like if you really look at it, it is horrifically scary. And that's what Amdapur was using. So let's talk about that.
So that was one of the primary causes of what happened in the sixth Umbral Calamity.
Yeah.
It started with Mach, and we're not going to go fully into the sixth Umbral Calamity because that's going to come up in one of our videos, which I was supposed to write the script for, but I've been too busy lately. Cobb, don't hit me.
Oh,
He's gonna hit you,
I really am.
and then he's
Yep.
gonna hit me because I've also been busy.
That's okay. We're all behind.
Yeah.
So
We're
it
all
all
doing
started
our
with Mach. Their lust for expanding kind of went into first Nim, where they unleashed a bioweapon known as Batoso.
Is that the secret of Nim?
Yes,
Yes, the rats.
that's the movie that they made, and they never told you about what the secret ending was. And then they moved on to the Forest of Gridiania with the White Mages.
Yeah, and if you wonder why the elementals didn't bother this Andapor, it's because they were white mages and they were terrified of them.
Here comes the curious part. So the White Mages of Amdapor have these stone golems for protection. And they've been secluded all of this time. Kind of cut off from interacting with anyone and everyone. They kind of keep to themselves. For good reason, of course. They're now threatened with the... They're threatened now. They are facing a very offensive mage battalion, squad, army, whatever. They have to shore up their defenses. For some reason, their golems historically become kind of stronger than what they were. And if you look in the Encyclopedia Eorzea, a trend appears, which, talk for a moment, I'm going to pull it up here.
No.
The
I
batteries.
find it actually very interesting because of the recent info we got on the little confirmation we got of the Voidsent inhabiting statues. It's like,
Which we see in Lost City, actually.
yes.
Or no, Amdapor Keep.
Andapor Keep, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. We see it early on, but it's not like explained. I don't think it was explained. At least I didn't see the explanation.
No, I mean
but now
they
it's
pop
like
out like
firmly
gargoyles
explained.
would in real life.
See, I've played
imagery.
enough older Final Fantasy games to have like a statue suddenly come to life and attack you. It's like, oh yeah, that happens sometimes.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
now
it's
it
normal.
has a reason in lore, which is that thing is
Exactly.
now a host. That is cool as hell. Oh, and that makes me think about the Voidsent down in Zemail Darkhold, the large monster that's your everyday monster over there on the 13th.
The Batral.
Oh, yeah.
So, was there a statue down there? Since we're just filling the air.
Interesting.
Where
question.
was this again? Sorry, say.
In Dismail Darkhold.
Zemail
is how it's pronounced, and the final boss is a Voidsent with two cleavers.
It's been so long since I did that dungeon new that I don't remember the cutscene.
Yeah, he's just.
It
down
may
there.
have just been summoned off screen and have been lurking down there too.
It's the one where he tethers to the crystals.
Yeah, I remember the guy.
I'm not wondering about
just don't remember
cutscenes.
the
I'm
scene.
wondering if the condition for that thing being there was there a statue down there, or did it just end up lurking there? It's a curiosity.
Well, I mean, it could have been summoned into a statue. Well, I'm trying to remember the whole thing about Zemail Darkhold was having all kinds of bad stuff go down, but like most of it wasn't Voidsent, right?
That's right.
Well,
Well,
though, I mean, there are Voidsent in. I mean, the whole thing about Zemail is that it's actually taken by Voidsent because the first boss is fucking
First boss is the
Ariel.
eye. Yeah.
The second boss is these ogre things that are actually also Voidsent.
See,
So,
there's
yeah.
also an issue with like what is a Voidsent in this universe. Like we know that. I mean, we had the information on the Galicats, and they are actually from Elpis, so we know that they're not.
Yeah, they're not Voidsent.
But they were considered lesser Voidsent in the lore book, or are they just cute? And it was left kind of ambiguous, but leaning Voidsent. So those ogres that shoot fireballs, you see them all over the world. You know, there's some in the northeast of Korthus.
Some in Mordona too, like
it's
the
hard to
ones
say if
lurking
they're not just a
around.
native creature versus some void entity.
I mean, technically, there's. I mean, I know the lore book says that the Galicats are considered or something speculated.
Stalin propaganda!
Yeah, but they also call it Cloudkin, which is like flying creatures. So it's
That's
like,
right.
we're down to what Charlian knows and what Charlian doesn't know.
Which honestly is a
checks out.
good way to do lore in the book, because they can just say, "Oh, we were wrong."
Exactly. It's great. I love it, actually.
Okay.
Ooh. Alex found a
Okay.
thing.
Curry-boo. Does anyone
Yes.
remember that?
I do remember
Yep.
Caribou. Talk about it.
So the Curry-boo was created by the Magi of the Amdapor using an advanced form of golem construction. The statue is animated by the gems embedded in its chest and hands. Curry-boo
Hey, that
commands...
sounds familiar.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Curry-boo commands a formidable white magics to aid in its battle against invading Voidsent. However, in number 2, in Encyclopedia Eorzea Volume 2, it enhances, it gives further explanation. Created by Amdapor and Magi to protect their city, this wind golem is animated by gems infused with the power of white magic, of course. To better contend with Voidsent, it is said to have been made in the image of transcendent beings from yet another plane. This is where my theory came into focus here, because I was just like, well, what if someone or a select group of people gave them the knowledge to enhance their stone golems to further aid their cause?
Those
I mean,
dastardly Lalafels.
Given
And
that, no, that's
that
him.
the whole like image of transcendent beings from yet another plane. I think you know where I'm going with this.
The first.
Oh yes,
Mhm.
Sin Eaters, which I've actually looked into this a fair bit because I find it interesting as well. And while it's likely that obviously unless some really wonky time stuff is going on, the flood on the first hadn't happened at that point. The fact of the matter is, before the flood, we do see the Vobertite court magician transforming people into what look like succubi and other
he's using void magic.
other Voidsent type creatures. There existed the transformation principle seems to be more or less universal. It's just what color you turn afterwards.
That's
Yes.
right.
So
it's
it
like
seems-
which alignment are you being pushed towards?
It seems fitting.
That's what it is. And if
Maybe-
the problem isn't like the time differentiation, the time dilation between the shards, it's that.
Or it could just
Well-
be that what Charlian interprets is like there's transcendent being from another plane, but in truth, the Amdapori were creating or just injecting pure light in their veins, and some turn into Sin Eaters or
Well,
proto
and-
Sin Eaters.
That's definitely seems a possibility to me, though I don't know how directly the Asians could be involved, since that would probably hurt them. I also think there's a
I
distinct
doubt that
possibility.
because they're the architects of calamities.
Yes, but
Giving one side a little bit of a
Yes.
push towards another, causing them to use more magics, and in turn causing the
yeah.
elemental imbalance.
I meant just with the direct
Specifically with
injection
light.
of the light itself, because the light is harmful to them. I in fact think it's very likely, and the fact, like, consider if the Asians were like, well, you could summon Voidsent, and they're like, ew, no, Voidsent dark, and they're like, what if you could do a light version? And they're like, I'm
Yeah.
listening.
That's color
That
me
seems
impressed.
very, because even if there hadn't been Sin Eaters made at that point, the principle remains sound, and I assume Asians, well versed in creation magic and
Yes,
the corruption of souls, would understand how it works.
Yeah,
because
there's
this
a
would
time
be the
aspect.
blueprint for what shows up in the first. This would
And
be
as-
almost a testing
Exactly.
ground.
It could even, it could almost be like a testing ground. I agree. And as Zental says, just doing lines of light. Yep, pretty much.
Snorting
Rama
lines of
Britta
light.
would have been alive during this period, so he would have been the architect of this.
Time. I mean, the thing is that the orchestration of the first went kind of awry. Most of it was not planned to go down the way it did.
It went too well.
Yeah, that too. But I mean, we also know that the Asians are not above using light. I mean, a little bit. So there's that.
He's a primal, though.
Yeah, but considering things, he still uses light.
Yeah, but
you
you
think
keeping
he's
a
a
primal
primal,
from
but
using light.
I would consider him a primal light.
you guys really want to get freaked out or get your mind blown, take a trip through Andapur. Just not in explorer mode, but actual like fight through it unsynced, and just kind of take a look around at the various features and the various levels of the place. You'll find deeper within, there's a bunch of light that seems to be just radiating from the ceiling, yet we're beneath ground.
Yeah.
This whole conversation gets me in the mood to go down to Palace of the Dead again. I know that's Gilmora, but the fact is deep floors have a lot of light and a lot of like dearth of
weird white stuff,
and it's not near weird white stuff, but it's almost like things have been drained of their ether. And if you imagine a white mage empire, where are they getting white magic takes energy from others? There's just something interesting about all that, and the ambience inside the Lost City is just so purely lit. It's blank canvas white.
Very, very bright. And when you try and look, this is when you're all the way down at the bottom, by the way. It's very, very light up top, despite when you have descended, the previous level that you were on was pitch black, and there was no light coming in except for in the ceiling there are a few cracks. Go down below, you're in this blinding white area. You can't see the bottom at all. There's this white fog, and you can't see too far off. There's pillars. When you look up, you just see no ceiling. You see light shining through. There should be a ceiling, but there isn't.
And it's not just fog, it's illuminated.
Yeah.
I also, every time I see the gloom in there, especially at the low levels where you can see that it's just this like red spooky radiance, I'm always like, what is this? What does it mean? It seems very cool.
There's also, when you look at the illuminated circles in the second floor area where the cracks in the ceiling, where you can kind of pull the mobs into the light and they get debuffs, there are, around those circles of light, there are designs. There are kind of like, I wouldn't say ley lines, but like kind of curious, almost like, they almost kind of look like the bard's songs.
Yeah, the little like floor like,
designs. They're designs all around the light area. And also in Amdapur Keep, or the Lost City of Amdapur rather, that was where we sealed Diabolos at, or rather where they sealed Diabolos. Diabolos was the Mock's answer to Amdapur, the same way that Batosa was their answer to Nim. Well, Diabolos, that it was a trial and error thing, and he got sealed away beneath the city. And when the Warrior of Light was asked to kind of go and explore the area, we accidentally set him free.
Oops, it's our fault. The fucking entire Alliance raid series for Heavensward happened. Oops.
Rip.
We fought him, and then he ran off.
I mean, in fairness, we didn't mess up the Void Ark. That was something else, but we didn't help with the rest.
Yeah, we released the entity that was after the Queen.
So yes, the entire Void Ark raid series, as well as Bosnia, the very end of it, the Dalriata, is our fault.
Go team.
I mean, the Dalriata is weird because it's like, it's a Diablo armament, but it's being
That was
there, like,
Allagan, wasn't it?
That was an Allagan. It's called the Allagan Harrier, which is a weapon, but it inherited the soul of Diabolos.
Ah.
Because he makes several comments about how he's going to get his revenge.
Okay, so basically, I thought that we kind of burn him with a nullstone, but maybe not. Meh.
No.
The problem is, again, we're learning in 6.2.
He's Team Rocket.
Die unless you eat them, and even so, they might reconstruct if whatever eats them gets killed.
Yeah, it just
Which
kind of
means-
puts that theory to.
And that's how we know Scathach is dead, because Diablo's ate her.
Yep.
That is indeed the thing that happened. Oh, then he also got his ass kicked. I don't know. Maybe she's reforming somewhere.
I want her to
Maybe.
come
I don't
back.
know.
Scathach is
But that
one
also
too.
means the Cloud of Darkness can come back.
Well, the Cloud
Yes,
of Darkness was
Cloud of
already
Darkness was only
reconstructing
defeated.
when we were running away.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, it was sending bolts and stuff and tried to attack Graha, and then it was like, haha! I activate my trap card!
I mean, now it makes more sense knowing how things work in the 13th, of course. I mean, I don't know if you can memoriate the Cloud of Darkness. Maybe it's too powerful. Who knows? But
I just realized that this could mean, since Void Sent reconstruct after killed, that is, you know how most duties you go back and it's like, if you go back, you're technically just remembering it. You could actually be canonically redoing the whole World of Darkness raid every time you go in there.
Oh
They
yeah,
all
that
have
makes
come
sense.
back.
Because we never really destroyed it. We just defeated it temporarily.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so Cloud's
We
hanging
didn't
out
stick it
somewhere.
in a Memoria crystal.
Boy.
It's just funny.
So we can find Cloud of Darkness's domain at some point.
I mean, we saw a bunch of those, like, you know when you do the World of Darkness and there's this, like, floaty platform surrounded
The
in, like,
circles.
a vortex. Yeah, okay, so I actually did it with some friends to explore it and try and figure out what's going on. Once you get to the final battle, that aurora dissipates, and if you go all the way to the start and look up at the final, look up where it is, it just looks like the final arena. It's just like a big old circle with the top cut off, and you fight on top of it.
So you think those
So
are
in
domains?
theory, all those things we saw in the background in the Fell Court of Troya could be stuff like that. It's just a little interesting thing, anyway. I'm gonna have to go dig up those old screenshots wherever I took them, because it was really interesting, but I didn't think it was going to be quite as relevant as I just realized it's become.
yeah,
So now that we've gone over Amdapor, let's go to the Sanctuary.
Sanctuary of the
The
12.
12?
The Island Sanctuary?
I
have
don't
nothing
think
to
that's
say.
in Gridiania.
It is in my heart.
So we talked about the Shrine of the 12, the Sanctum of the 12, I think 2 weeks ago a little bit, right?
Uh,
Maybe not?
If
My
if we
brain.
did, my memory, I have no memory of that moment.
I think Cobran
That's
was talking
why.
Okay,
about
Gandalf.
it being a actual sanctuary during that calamity.
Yeah, so it was so it was built during the 5th Astral era, and it was a sanctuary and a haven for people who were escaping that in the Black Shroud.
It's not that big on the outside. Can this please be Deep Dungeon Part 3?
Has anyone ever been to a wedding in that place? It's freaking
A
massive.
couple of
It
times.
is
It's
large, but it's not
Many.
as it's surprised. Like I can't imagine an entire city's worth of folks being there during a calamity.
I'm now remembering someone had, like, I don't know, gone out of bounds or whatever on the area. It's very weird looking. It's definitely just constructed, you know, it's just reused textures and stuff, but it was funny.
Yeah, exactly, Neocone. If we stick enough Allegan tech under the Island Sanctuary, we can move it wherever we want it to be.
Nice. You know, yeah.
I think I'm still rank 7 on Island Sanctuary, but
I just hit rank 10 an hour ago.
Hey, Gretz.
Yeah, I
Now to
only
get your
started
bike.
it earlier this week.
Get your motorcycle.
but yeah, I mean, it's like if in subsequent expansions they want to make Island Sanctuary like cooler, then put elegant technology on it, make it fly. We have our own Azizla.
That'd be awesome. It's just your mount is just the island.
Listen. I just want an arc for myself. And if they give me that, and they give me the fucking Dreadnought mount, I will make my domain the perfect.
Oh my god.
place.
Alex says, I didn't start on Sanctuary beyond unlocking it because my Warrior of Light is an escape to farming.
Amazing.
So we've covered the East Shroud, South Shroud, and West Shroud.
North Shroud.
Oh,
Now
God.
we're in North Shroud, and this is a very special place.
Yes, the fucked up Shroud. So, there's a place in North Shroud called Peace Grove?
Peace Garden!
Peace Garden, yes. It's in the very northeast of the zone. And that is actually where the communion between the elementals and the Galmorans took place, where they actually came to that agreement. And then Yoren's kid grew horns, lived forever, and thus the Paljali were born. They're only born to Huron families, because fuck the Ellison, I guess.
Thanks.
Because fuck having to
Yeah.
put the horns on more than one model.
Yeah, right. But yeah, basically they are the intermediaries for the elementals and tend to be leaders of Gridiania.
There's also a place where we find a certain raid series.
Yes, the Zodiac Braves and Geralt.
Mm-hmm. True.
Oh, unless you meant actual raid and not grind raid.
I'm done. No, the Binding Coil of Bahamut,
Yes.
as you can see by the giant arc of a machine laying just above the just to the north of the Falgord float.
Mm.
I think I want to show something I found.
When I first went to the North Shroud, I got so lost.
Oh, did you?
And-
Yeah, like the 20th time I went to the
Mhm.
North Shroud, I was still getting lost. I feel that.
So, one thing I think is interesting about the North Shroud is that's really where we see the Ixali invasion of the Shroud going on. And that I do wonder why they're not invoking the Green Wrath more. And the reason for that is because the elementals have been so weakened by the calamity that the Green Wrath right now isn't really a thing. They don't have the power to do that.
It's more like the minor green annoyance.
Yeah, it's the green annoyance. We'll call it
The
that.
green wine. Stop, you're hurting the trees.
Simply green, which is why now we see the Conjurers Guild taking a much more active role. It's why they're leaving Gridiania now to deal with corruption threats outside of the forest because, well, one, they need to know more about the outside of the forest, which is why they rely on adventurers and the yellow dragons, which is what we are. And not yellow dragons, yellow serpents is what they call them, twin adder. But we see the Conjurers taking a much more active role in purifying the forest and taking care of the forest because the elementals just can't do it right now. Oh my god, what is that nightmare?
I wanted to show this to everybody.
Why?
So this is
Yeah,
the 1.0
I knew what it looked like.
Gridiania,
Nightmare.
the Black Shroud. So
Look
you
at all these copy pasted assets.
Yeah, it's a problem.
So it's literally the same area, the same like.
Yeah, they didn't change the map. They changed the way you traverse it, and its appearance, and how long it takes to get places. So
Like
you see-
they'll take like a certain area. They'll take like, let's say like a stream going through one area, or
That's right.
like a maybe like a zone, a small little piece of a zone, and then copy paste it like
Oh yeah.
10 times over, and be like, okay, this is an area.
So you see Falgord Float is over here. And you see the Galmora Ruins, Proud Creek, Hertz Mill, Peace Garden.
It is interesting to see how much
Same
of the
path,
general
same
shape
path,
was
same
kept,
path,
yeah.
same
Yeah.
path, same path.
It's the same. Yep. White Wolf Gate is oriented here on the lake.
What's hilarious is the Gridiania questline in 1.0 didn't go to most of these places. Most of
No.
it was like right outside Gridiania.
Yep.
Huh.
I would like to get access to some of these places again, though.
Same. Montoy Cellars used to be a dungeon, but it's now just a walk-through gate where
Mm-hmm.
they have wine casks. I don't think I've
Earth's
been
Vow.
there in years. But it was the way to get from the East Shroud to the South Shroud.
Yeah, there's a handful of side quests that deal with the Montoy Cellars, and then it's just a passage, basically.
Mm-hmm.
No.
And then the current map is... Hold on. What did I do? Ah. So you see, they just made it much easier to compute. And these long roads you see on the map are where you have loading screens, rather than having to walk.
It's an interesting way to do it. Just make him walk really far while we load it in. I mean, it works.
Yeah, I mean, well, the function of the long walks in games, even, I mean, pretty much going, it's because you're loading in the assets. So it serves the same function, but you would get the illusion of immersion because you're walking there while they load, whereas now it will just transition to a loading screen and pop in. So
I remember when I was new to Final Fantasy XIV, talking about back when I started, has sort of awoken the memory. And I had played Final Fantasy XII before, and I got to the zone entrance, and I was like, oh, "This is a new zone. I understand," because it uses the same little blue dots.
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh, I know this."
But you get a much better sense for how large the shroud is, because in the game you don't really experience it, but you can see how it's placed in the world on the bigger map.
Oh, it's huge.
Yeah.
And it was also like partially destroyed, I think, too, in the Calamity too.
Yeah, if you go to Central Shroud and go to the very west by the Gridiania entrance, it's just bare.
Yeah. It's a huge, well, it's like a cave, yeah? Up on that top cliff, there's a huge barren area.
Yeah, it definitely puts it in a new context, at least.
So did we talk about how Gridanians are vegetarians? Well, not vegetarians. They don't do animal husbandry.
I don't know that.
Yeah, because the elementals don't like cow farts.
I mean...
Is that why?
It's not why. It's because the animals grazing would disrupt the balance in the ecosystem in the forest.
I mean, that makes sense. The reason the plains of America were so rich and fertile and had so much topsoil was because of buffalo wandering around in herds, pooping and eating grass, which grows more grass, and repeat and repeat. It's all right, though. We've almost eroded it down to nothing.
Good. Not long left, though.
Yeah.
But
actually, though, when it comes to that, it is an interesting point and a valid one, because grazing animals on land changes the way it is, and it grows, and it would change the landscape of it quite literally. Not to mention that people would be like, "Oh, I'll just clear a little more land. Oh, the cow just had a calf and need more space," you know?
Yeah, that's how it is. But they hunt. Absolutely do they hunt.
Yes, they do hunt. But the Trappers League very, very carefully regulates what can be hunted.
That makes sense, I guess, with the elementals being like that.
Yeah, and then they give all of their excess stuff to the Leatherworkers Guild.
It's been too long, so I can't really touch on it, but I do remember the leatherworking quest line being quite insistent that you should respect the leather and treat it well and not be wasteful.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. I'd forgotten about that, but you're right.
Yeah.
You've summoned memory.
Yes. Jeva is amazing. Someone says, "I love my super mean blonde mentor." She is.
That's an accurate description of the Leatherworker Guildmaster.
The devil wears lips.
Oh my god. That's amazing.
Well, we're coming up on time here. I don't know if there's anything chat would like us to discuss, or if there's anything the cast thinks we missed.
I mean, there is a ton more to Gridiania, but then you're getting into the weeds, and we're going to be putting it all into a video. So,
Please look forward to it.
yes.
Is there any questions left? Anything you want to ask us?
We'll just give it a few minutes.
By the
What size shoe does Val wear? Oh, I think I heard that somewhere.
Actually, Alex, a good portion of the video is already done. That's where we're getting a lot of this information because the research has already been done. You just got to finish it.
you want do we want to comment on next week
Yes.
plan?
Someone asked, "Will you all be at
Looking
home?"
forward to it. I don't know about you guys.
Well, go ahead. Don't be shy.
So next week we're gonna welcome back some of our guests that we had on during that whole week. We had the all-star cast, the packed crew, where we interviewed Anonymous, Pyromancer, Sinook Scribe, all of them. We're gonna have some of them back, and we're gonna talk about Ivalice in more detail with a few of our more hardcore fans, including Meowth and I. So it's gonna be very, very fun.
Ivalice is always a blast.
Always, forever.
Always. So that's exciting. Thank you for arranging that.
I mean, we don't really arrange anything. It's just that when
It was a suggestion.
yeah,
They asked nicely, and we had some yeses. That's what that was.
It'll be a
but
good
also,
time.
But also because I recall watching the VOD. Well, I'm watching the show, and some of them were actually like Ivalice.
Yeah, I remember that.
I was like, oh, and we were like, we really have to invite some of them for an Ivalice episode. And it will be, and now I'm kind of crap because the All-Star crew, Ayumi was there, but I wasn't there, and I'm not used to talk to new people, so yeah.
You'll like it. You'll get used to it.
I play myself.
Yeah, Ivalice is going to be a lot more interesting now because now we have some more information about the 13th and how their version of Auracite, the Memoria crystals, work.
Oh, trust me, we'll have a lot to say.
If the developers of this game are listening, I really want them to link all of the 13th lore with all of the Auracite lore, with all of the Ivalice lore, like really, really neatly. I want obviously a little room for theory crafting, but I would really like them to tell me what the heck with Ultima, the High Seraph, because it's been an itch I've had for a long time. I bring it up when I shouldn't, like when it's not even the subject of the video.
Sure,
but,
I can tell you what it is right now. Ultima's Genova.
yeah, fine, but you know, they used the word other plane of existence to mean the 13th and the 1st in the Galmora
And
stuff,
yet you
and
laugh at me
earlier-
whenever I make that theory. Oh, well, the stone golems totally aren't from the first.
Well, it's a timeline issue, right? I think Nilo spoke on that as well today. Like we know that the first, it couldn't be that the first is where they're pulling the souls, but it could be that what you said today about the experiment grounds, that makes a lot more sense.
Yes.
Yeah, the
That
flood
was-
happened after the 7th calamity, but before 2.5.
Right.
Because that's when that's why the warriors. Well, I'm trying to remember when Ardbert and company first showed up because that was
It's-
after the flood had occurred.
It's
Yeah.
before that. So in 2.5,
Yeah, it's like
there's the quest in
2.2-ish.
Earth's Fount, where they first
Yeah,
discovered
yeah, yeah.
the thinning of the ether. And that's when
That's
the flood
right.
happened.
Okay, yeah. Actually, yeah, perfect. Thank you.
But yeah, I mean, the reason Ardbert and company are even on the source is because they're listening to a lying Elidibus about how best to save their world.
I wouldn't say lying, just exaggerating.
Different
They
point
have
of
different
view.
Yeah. This
different
is some Star
definitions of
Wars stuff.
saving.
Yeah, absolutely. Different definitions
Ooh,
of
there's a
save
point
is
of
the
view on it.
core
Rejoin
of
the
the
souls,
matter.
you'll be reborn. Otherwise, you'll be locked in stasis forever. That's saving, right?
Never mind that you'll be reborn in another part of your soul that you won't have control over.
Yeah.
But that doesn't matter. And honestly, it was a good plan.
And honestly, it was a good plan.
I agreed with
Well,
it.
it led into the whole thing with the Warriors of Darkness and sending Minfilia there.
It is true that in an instance where the world is indeed unsavable, it's much better to rejoin the worlds than to just let it turn into a giant white marble.
IsomoArt says, I just want to know who Amarant's mom is. Who is the woman hot enough to make Pope Chen be not holy?
See, I'm just sitting here thinking any man with power is gonna
Just call.
You should just be surprised he doesn't have a bunch of little Emmerichs.
Wow.
So
He is a bastard.
You're basically saying that he was holy enough for a man with power.
I mean, he didn't get ousted, so he did okay, I guess.
I can't believe you just called his.
I'm always
eminence
lame like
Pope
that.
Chan.
I'm gonna call him Pope Chan forever.
You guys are ridiculous.
Yes, we are.
Well, I don't know. Maybe he was hotter when he was young.
I mean, if Emmerich is
his
anything to
son,
go on,
yeah.
he was 1,000% hotter when he was younger. Unless he looks just like his mommy, but boy.
Yeah,
I think that's a good note to end on. What do you say?
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah,
It's
get
a good
me out of
mental
here.
image. All right, we expect
the ejection button.
We expect fan art of Pope Chan by next week.
I already know where it is.
All right,
I've been
everybody.
cursed with it.
We'll see you all next
my
week. Thank you
God.
so much
Creating
for coming
memes.
out. And
Yep,
we perform best when we're creating memes.
this is true.
We are a meme.
This is also true.
Mommy
Thanks so much for
meowders.
coming out, everyone.
Thanbe everybody.
All right.
I know when any Pope meme related ends up becoming by experience. Anyways.
All right, we're signing off. See you all next week, and please
Look
look forward
forward.
to it. We're going to have some guests. It's going to be a blast, and we will discuss Evilise again. So let's have fun. We'll see you all then, and have a good motorcycle. Have a good afternoon.